All right, guys, welcome. Episode 1. We're going to call this, at least for now, I think in 90s Card Corner. How does that work? Does that sound okay?
Works for me.
All right,
Sounds great.
Cool. All right, so 90s Card Corner, Episode 1. And I'm Adam from Splendid Sports. Your other two hosts, we got Matt, the Card Story. How's it going, Matt?
Going well, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
This is fun. I'm really excited for this. And then we have Brian, the High Pop Professor. How's it going, Brian?
It is going great. I am so pumped. Been looking forward to this.
And Brian, you've been on with a channel on YouTube how long now?
About a month.
All right.
About 1 month. Almost to the day. So
awesome.
Relatively new to the YouTubes. Not new to the hobby, but to the YouTube aspect of it, yes.
Yeah, so we'll get into that first. But how long have you been collecting 90s cards? Because that's what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I started collecting 90s cards, I believe, in 1990. I was 5 years old at the time, and my older brother, Iconic Al, was collecting, and so too was our father. And so they both, to this day, continue to collect, and we chat almost every day about various card things, sending each other eBay auctions and discussing various facets of the hobby. So, yeah.
I love that. So I think kind of as far as experience goes, far and away, you're going to be the master level. I'm going to turn to you on this show for pretty much all the answers. I've been collecting.
I don't have all the answers, but I'll do what I can.
So your main guy that you collect in that time period is Greg Maddux, right? Like the same we're going to get into with Matt.
That's correct.
So we got a Maddux guy. I've been collecting Pedro Martinez for a couple years, so I'm like intermediate, definitely nowhere near your level of knowledge. And then we have Matt, who just started, Matt? Pretty recently, right? Collecting Maddux through this time period?
About 9 days. I'm back into the 90s. Obviously, I'm old enough to have grown up and collected in the 90s, right? But I haven't bought a 90s card until, other than some oddball Aaron stuff, right? Some reprint stuff, but nothing where I was like targeting the 90s, to be clear.
Well, you're famous on YouTube here for your Hank Aaron collection. So vintage. But I when you told me you started collecting Maddux, I got really excited because like I made a video where I kind of talked a little bit about this, but the point of this is, number one, for just the three of us and maybe more people in the future to come together and just show some cards and maybe learn from each other. I know I'm going to learn from you, Brian, and Matt. The speed that you go at them, you're probably going to know a lot more about this than me pretty soon. So I'm looking to learn. I think a lot of people, there are some people that collect 90s on YouTube that have messaged me that they're excited about this. But I think it's a little light on the content, so hopefully we can add to it. And there's a lot of people that have also mentioned to me that they kind of have looked at this from afar, have never really jumped in. Maybe they think it's too much or too confusing, or they don't know where to start. So I'm hoping through this we can educate a little bit and give some ideas to people, because that's how I got into this. I watched and listened to content about some of it was even like basketball and football cards from this time period. But as we'll see, a lot of the same parallels in cards are across all three sports. So I kind of got interested in that, and then I felt like, hey, I could do this. So I picked Pedro Martinez to do that in. So I think that's kind of the initial goals here, is to just talk, and hopefully people can enjoy and learn a few things too from this era, and maybe they'll want to collect. Although I'll say you wouldn't want to collect Pedro Martinez, you wouldn't like his cards, so stay away from Pedro cards. All right, guys.
I don't want to influence anyone, right? Keep them off your.
Yeah, I don't need any more Pedro collectors out there to compete with. But let's start in. Matt, I noticed today on Twitter X, thousands of views on a post that you put out there. And I guess we'll start with that. Can you just kind of fill us in on what's going on with a card you recently bought?
Yep. So as you mentioned, I tend to kind of go all in when I do one of these things, right? When I did Aaron and then Spawns and now Maddux. So been trying to buy a lot of the random sets just to see what I like, right? So I've been trying to find some of the serialized cards, which the 90s is known for, right? Kind of the first cards that have either hand serial numbered or hand numbered or serial numbered cards, right? So anyway, last night I was on ComC, noticed a Maddux PSA Flair Showcase Legacy Collection, row 0 from 1998, right? Oh, that's nice. Number to 100. graded in a PSA 9 slab. So I'm like, okay, I'll take it, right? So I put my, added money to my account, checked out. And then I tried looking and see all the other, because like that year, there's like 4 rows, there's 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm like, oh, let's see how much these other ones go for. I think row 0 is supposed to be like the hardest one, right? But I'm just curious how the other rows go. And I happened to see another row 0 from the same year, and I realized the back of my card is different. And so I think I fell prey to being a little new and not doing enough research in advance before making some purchases, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll show, I actually have that for a Pedro card. So this is the same card that Matt's talking about from Addict, but it's the row 0 Flair Showcase. Now, this could happen to anybody, because when I went to buy this, I just luckily kind of looked it up on Baseball Cardpedia, and it tells you what to look for. It's still confusing, but Brian, you can help us out with this. But the key, I guess, to these is you want to look for the blue foil name, right, on the back there.
Yeah, these are really, really, I mean, there's a lot of counterfeits out there to watch out for. But yeah, the big thing is, like you said, the blue foil name on the reverse, because the fronts are going to look identical. You're not going to be able to tell from the front whether you've got the real McCoy or you've got a fake one. So on the back, a couple of things to look for. So like we said, the blue foil name should be there. Also, when it comes to the actual serial number itself, on a lot of the fake ones, it says like number of 100. The O and of should be a different font than the zeros that are used there in the 100s. So yeah, if you take a look, there's a distinct difference between the zeros and the O and of. That's what you're looking for. And so that's a very good sign to see that they are slightly different. The O is a bit wider, a bit taller. That's what you want. And a second thing too to look for is the location of the serial number. Sometimes on some of these legacies, especially the backs that are horizontal, I forget what rows those are, but the positioning of where they are can change depending on if it's legitimate or if it's a counterfeit.
So I have I have PSA guarantee in the little ticker here, because that's going to be I think PSA is going to, from everything I've heard, I've never done a PSA guarantee thing, but this would be a perfect case of them coming in and covering I don't know do you guys know how it works? Do they pay exactly what you paid, Matt, like to refund or reimburse you for this? Or do they just go by like the market value, or how does that work?
I think they're going to go by the, obviously, their lawyers are going to have in their accounts, they're going to have them go with the lower of what I paid or the fair market value, I'm assuming, right? So,
okay. To
protect themselves, right? But I'm going to obviously wait till the card gets in hand. So again, I bought it off ComC. I think a lot of people know it's been buying on ComC recently, like the shipping's crazy. So I always pay for the kind of that middle tier shipping. That's just a few days wait to get it shipped out. Kind of the sweet spot. I don't need it like next day or anything. I'm not going to pay $60. I pay like 10 to get it here in a few days, right? So I'll have it next week, and then I'll try to follow up from there. I've had this happen before with a slab card. This wasn't the first time I've been down this path. I had a CSG one that was slabbed. Yep. There was a reprint that was altered to make it so it didn't look like a reprint pass through, and so they made me whole there, right? So hopefully the same thing will happen here. But yeah, the cert was still good. I even added it to my inventory before I realized it was a bad card, right? So,
well, we'll keep us posted as you talk to PSA about this. But yeah, I mean, it's a clear-cut case. I think it's pretty right up the alley of, hey, this is one where you make this right, because PSA, good and bad, PSA messes up like this, right? They grade cards, and I think your cert had like a 0, right? So it was graded a long time ago, probably.
I think it was graded the late 90s. It's probably graded right after release. Right. 0 too.
Hey, this is such a known example now, and the fact that it's not one of the newer flips, clearly this was not graded. They know now a lot more than they knew right when these were coming out. These are being put out, so I think having that hindsight, history and knowledge, I feel like you should be okay on this one.
Yeah, I'll let y'all know for sure. It'll be a good saga. It's a good early lesson learned as I try to venture into this new territory for me.
But I got to say, these are confusing to me. I mean, like, all right, so there's the different rows. So like you said, Matt, row 0 in these is supposed to, even though they're all numbered to 100, right? 100. The row 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? They all are numbered to 100, but the zeros are the hardest to find. Is that kind of how that works, Brian?
Yeah. So as you go progressively lower with the rows, they get tougher and tougher to pull.
Okay.
Just as a general row, whatever. I mean, to my understanding, though, the legacy is just a parallel of each one of those rows. So technically, the legacies shouldn't be any harder to pull if there's 100 of everyone out there. That's, you know, it
I
is.
guess
It is what it is.
for it or
But,
something.
I think that is correct for the non-legacy row. The row 0 is the toughest one. That's correct.
And there's the masterpiece ones, which I guess there's some fake of those too, right? So did a lot
Well,
of research since then, right?
So those are tougher. I've actually seen a masterpiece because my father had the Barry Bonds. Yeah, Flair. Well, he was a crazy super collector, so he's got. But and so that one's kind of cool because on the back it says the only one of one masterpiece card, and
That's cool.
it's printed over top of a holographic rectangle that has like the Fleer, like the logo behind, like in the refractor shim. It would be really hard to counterfeit. You would have to really know what you're looking for. Now that being said, I'm sure someone's attempted it, but I have the benefit of actually having seen one and held one in the flesh. So
that's cool.
So these legacies are really, you know, chased after cards. They're beautiful looking cards and significant because was it the 1997, the legacies or the showcase, Flair showcase, that was the first set to have one of ones, right? I believe back in 97.
Yeah. So 97 was the first one that, in my opinion, ruined the hobby. Because at that point, you know, my father was a big Barry Bonds player collector, super collector. You know, his goal was to collect every single card ever made for Barry Bonds. Now, in 1995 or 94, 93, that wasn't too unheard of or too unrealistic of an expectation. Yeah, you had some rare cards here and there. You had cards like one I was going to show a little bit later here, but I can show right now. You know, Barry Bonds in 93, Donruss Elite, you know, with this cracked dice, and this is just a beautiful, beautiful card, you know. This is, you know, peak high pop wax era, but and this is peak elite right here. This is you know, this is the crackled ice numbered out of 10,000 on the back, and with 10,000 there, this is kind of like it's rare, but it's still definitely attainable. Like if you want one, you can find one. So at that point, but then, you know, they had the numberings arms race throughout the mid 90s where they, you know, Donruss was like, okay, we're going to number them out of 5,000, and now out of 2,500, now out of 1,000, out of 500. And then all of a sudden it got to a point in 96 where, okay, now you've got, you know, circa raves at the 150. You've got, you know, you've got the score, you know, you got select certified with their whole mirror golds and mirror blues, you know, numbered out of 90 and 45 and 30, even though they weren't like numbered. That was the print run though, right? And so, you know, crazy set. And then all of a sudden, well, where's the end game? Well, the next year, now we have Flair Showcase doing it, one of one masterpiece cards. And also, people don't talk about this too, but 97 New Pinnacle was actually the first year also that had the printing plates, and those were also one of ones. And so really from that point onward, it was no longer a feasible goal. And I was like, well, what's the point? So kind of in protest, I don't actually own any Flair Showcase legacy cards, because to me that's kind of I'm a little salty about it, even to this day. I mean, I have plenty of numbered cards, you know, plenty of rare ones, but something about that just left a bad taste in my mouth, and I never quite fully recovered, I guess, from it. So
well, now every player has a million one of ones in every set.
Right.
So
joke's on you. Now everyone can have a one of one because now they're all over the place. And so
everyone.
Yeah.
So Brian was cheering on that bankruptcy proceeding, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Who's laughing now? That's right.
So Matt, so we got two Maddox collectors here, and that's the thing too with this era, which is fun to talk about. Even if the people watching don't care about Pedro or don't care about Maddox, they hopefully would have a player that they were a fan of or a team that has the same cards. You know, whether you might not care about Maddox cards or Pedro cards, but maybe you're into Tino Martinez or whatever. You know, they got the same cards from the same sets in a lot of these cases. So hopefully you can kind of take from that. But Matt, you're doing what route are you going with Maddox? Are you just trying to get everything? Are you trying to just go like the real top high end stuff, or what's your thought process on starting this?
Yeah, so I've set up the master set, which is playing days only. So it doesn't include the super set, which is like beyond playing days, which is because you got 17,000 plus cards on TCDB, which is a great resource to check out what's out there, right? But yeah, I'm not doing that. So master set's right around 2,000 cards, which is still crazy if you ask me, but I'm giving it a go. So I think I've ordered roughly 50 cards so far. give or take, and only one counterfeit. So I guess I'm okay. I'm kidding.
Not bad.
2% error rate. That's not bad, right? In polling, it's fine. Not so much in collecting, right? So yeah, I'm going for all of them, right? But I mean, again, they don't. I don't think they let you list 1-on-1s, which is good, right? On the master set. So
Well, again, what's the point?
Yeah.
But then again, does that mean, I was about to say, does that mean you can have over 100% completion rate then if you get a few masterpieces to pick up the slack for the ones that you're missing?
No, they don't let you do that, right? Because they won't even put it as like a targeted card, right, with any kind of scoring. So, but yeah.
Well, the Pedro master set is a complete disaster. Like they don't even have most of his like best cards, what Pedro collectors consider his toughest or best cards. They don't even have it in the master set. Like they don't have his PMGs or his like, it's just great. Like obviously they didn't put any work into it because he's not like Maddox. He's not the like tippity top most collectible players out there in the whole hobby. So
yeah, what's the number one set even? Because I was surprised. Like for Maddox, the top set's 55%, and then after that it's like 17% complete. Which I don't know. I guess I'm used to Aaron and Spawn, where you got some people 90+ percentile completion.
Yeah, with Pedro,
fewer cards.
I don't even know. Not much at all. A lot of the Pedro collectors don't even do graded. They just collect it all in, top loaders and one touch and mag pros. And so it's interesting. It's a mix of people. The best Pedro collection I ever saw in my life that I bought cards from recently, they were pretty much all ungraded, probably got 20 years ago, most of them. So the serial numbers help because with some of these, you just don't know how many are out there. You can't really go by the PSA pop report because a lot of them are just not graded. So you can't really tell unless it's a serial number card exactly how many are out there.
Oh, yeah.
Or sometimes the pop reports are higher than the print run.
Right.
That's a fun head scratcher.
Right. So, Matt, what do you want to show us here? What do you got?
So you mentioned this set. Oops. Sorry, I thought I had it out of the bag already. I guess I didn't. This is, I think Brian mentioned this set when he was going through a minute ago, but I think he called out Circa. So the only one that I got in so far that's, I guess, serialized to a low number is the second year Circa Rave. And these are numbered to 150.
Yep.
And I'm obviously hoping this is a legitimate one. I'm not sure you can see it down there. Oops.
Looks good to me.
Right there.
You're good, Matt.
Because at first I was a little worried because a little offset. I was like, oh gosh, but then trust me, I was paranoid last night checking it out. But yeah, pretty nice looking card. I mean, again, like, so kind of, I know Brian, I don't want to steal your thunder. You did a great video. I think it came out either this morning or yesterday, but about the true pop, right? This one's like there's a 400 card set. So yeah, you got to dodge those crazy players you don't want to get. Uguth or Urbina or something. Sorry, I don't have any fans of his out there, right? But like, and it is 1 in 30 packs, so it's like 1 in 12,000.
Yeah. He just doesn't have the the hobby mojo that Maddox has.
But yeah, so I thought I'd try to get some of those where I feel like, look, if I can get a card like that where it's anything above 5,000 to 10,000 per, or true hobby odds, I'm happy to buy those for under a few $100. I think that's a quote unquote a deal, right? Because I've opened a lot of boxes in the 90s. I didn't get any of the good hits, right? I remember like my best hit was like a Juan Gonzalez. Sorry, Mike, but like a Juan Gonzalez parallel one time. That was about it. So.
Yeah, that is so that was awesome video, Brian. Because I had heard that before, but I never really thought of it the way you put it, which makes total sense. Like the pack odds are going to be determined by obviously how many are in that set or how many are in that insert set. So that was if you guys haven't checked that one out, go to Brian's channel and check that video out. It's the last one he did.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. And that's a good point too. Of like when I hear people say, "Oh, all the cards are so expensive in the '90s," and some of them are, but it's kind of like with vintage where you can pick your lane. Like if you can collect, you can choose to collect Mickey Mantle, or you can say I want to collect Al Kaline, or you can say I want to collect Mickey Mantle in low grade. So you have options where you don't have to spend a ton of money. Like with the '90s. You can obviously pick a player that's not like Derek Jeter or Ken Griffey Jr. Or Barry Bonds even, but you can pick a lower player, or you can just pick a top player, but go after some of the higher serial number cards, like Crusades. You don't have to go for the Crusade Red. You could go for Crusade numbered to 250 or whatever. And there's different lanes you could go down, and there's still awesome cards. Whether numbered 250 or 50. So there's a lot of different options that you could do and it could be a lot of fun, I think. So
True. Even if you like refractors, there are really budget options available for you. You don't have to go for the super crazy, you know, the I don't know. Let's call it the 98 Bowman's Best mirror image atomic number 25. You don't have to go for those. I mean, these these ghost cards. There's one of these one of those exists for Maddox, and I've never seen one. So
yeah,
I'm
like,
just gonna have to.
If like the finest refractor run, you could do, like I did that with Pedro. I think I have all of them except for 1 year, and a lot of them are $50 or whatever. Do you guys care about the grade as far as like if it's a pretty tough card, or are you chasing grades on these? Or because I know I find myself not really caring the grade on these cards because a lot of them are already tough to find or they're low serial numbered anyway. So I'm just kind of cool with having one of them rather than being like, oh, I gotta, get a 9 instead of a 8 or a chase a 10 versus a 9. For whatever reason, I just don't care in this period of time. Really, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a little bit. Yeah, good. You go first, Matt.
Yeah, it depends on the card. Like certain cards I really like. I like to try to get at least an 8 if possible, right? If it's affordable, right? Some of the pricing breaks. I did the same thing with like vintage, right? You're gonna have these natural fall-offs where it makes sense to pay a little bit more to get the next grade up. To me, like if I get an 8 for 15, but a 9's 20, I'll probably buy the 9, right, for a few bucks. But like if the 8's $15 and the 9's 100, 8 works. So that's kind of where I'm at. It just depends on the card, I think, and the pricing, kind of the structure of the market, right? And a lot of it depends on how much the population is, right? Some of these things, like Brian, you pointed out one of your videos on the chrome refractors, like some of them have 10 or 12 cards graded total, so you're just happy to get one,
right?
Yeah, that's one other thing about some of these 90s inserts and refractors, that the pops are so low. If you're just going to sit around and wait for them to come up, I mean, the only people generally sending these in are ones who are collectors themselves, keeping them for their own collections. They're not looking to grade them and then flip them and sell them again. So a lot of those are just tucked away, squirreled away in collections, and so yeah, there's not much out there. And so I think for me and grading, I think a couple of things. I like the condition of my cards to be very good, and not like VG, I mean like mint 9 would be like 8s and 9s. I think would be my sweet spot. I'm fine with 8s. I have a handful of 7s. And again, it's interesting. And so I do send some cards in myself. I've sent in quite a few for grading if I think they've got a shot at adding value. And for 90s cards, it's interesting because like for ultra modern, I feel like really it's kind of just 10 or bust. You're hoping for the 10s. A 9 is sort of a loss, and it's almost, people would almost rather crack out a 9 of an ultra modern, sell it raw because the buyer thinks, oh, there's a potential it might be a 10, it might gem, and that's where they're going to pick up the card for that amount of money. 90s is a different beast altogether. It's not a vintage either. It's kind of in this weird zone where a lot of times I'm sending in cards really hoping for the 9. Because getting a 9 on something like a 95 finest refractor, which I just got, by the way, I just sent one in and got a 9 of a Maddox. I'm really, really pumped about that. But that's a 9 will add huge value comparatively to what we have with raw. Now, with that said, in particular, you'll see that like 80 to 90% of those Maddox 95 finest refractors are off-centered, like 80-20, like really severely. It's a sideways card. And I don't have it with me because it's just but so when you find the ones that are centered, when you find the ones that don't have the hulking, and that's another thing too, when you talk about grading, I'm going to do a video about grading 90s cards, and so because there are some issues that come up with 90s cards that don't face anything else. One of those is the greening or the hulking on some of these refractors, that again, some of them do and some of them don't. People don't know why they do. People open wax that's been sealed away for 25, 30 years, and these cards emerge that way from the pack already hulked. So it's not about exposure to sunlight. It's not about exposure to the air or humidity necessarily. Maybe temperature has something to do with the storage condition. I don't know. No one really, it's kind of a mystery. But the fact that some of these cards do hulk out very badly and some of them don't, to me, just sort of, well, it begs the question, first of all, why are some impacted the way they are? 94 Bowman's Best was the first one that had just tremendous, very severe issue with that set, particularly the blues. So the chipper and the jeter are most affected there. But then again, the ones that don't hulk, I think are going to command crazy premiums in the future. And so part of the way that manifests is in grading. So I sent the 94 best Maddox in there. It did have moderate hulking, and PSA gave it an 8. It was an otherwise perfect card, perfect corners, perfect edges. The surface had no scratches on it. It was just that hulking, just the greening. And so PSA determined that had sort of an upper level of ceiling of an 8, that was the highest they could assign that just based on that. I saw the exact same thing with 97, Bowman's Best Atomic Refractor, also a set that has a lot of greening issues, hulking issues there. Same deal. It was otherwise a perfect card. I sent it in and got an 8. I'm happy with it because basically all of them look that way. You're not really going to find some, and if you do find one that's somehow miraculously unhulked, yeah, I think you're going to be able to get a crazy premium for it. So, yeah. So, yeah, if I can add value, I will go after it and send them in. If I do get a 10 somehow, which does happen. In fact, I got 2 or 3 10s in my last order. I'm really happy about. So if you're interested, let me know. But yeah, so if I do get those, I will probably move those along. I'll sell those along because to me, I view grading as a tool, to help me achieve an end. And so I don't personally understand the crazy markup for the 10. I think when you look at a 10, you look at a 9. I had a video about this. I'm not sure I can really tell the difference looking at a card in a slab. What's a 9? What's a 10? 9s look so good to me that for the value, the quality of the card you're getting for that price, can't beat it, man. And honestly, even a lot of newer PSA 8s, I have to say newer because older ones don't hold up in my opinion. But the newer PSA 8s are fantastic, really. So I'm really happy living in that 8-9 world. And so if I get 10s, I'm probably just going to sell it, recoup that money and even downgrade and try to get into an 8 or a 9 and then put the money back towards more hobby funds. So
that's a perfect transition to what I was going to show because
there you go.
I recently bought a Crusade Red of Pedro, 1998 Crusade Red.
Yes, I saw your video about this, but go ahead.
I never followed up on it, right? Because it was like, all right, what am I getting back? And I was gonna make the video when I got the card. I just haven't done it, and I was like, oh, I'll just save it for this. Perfect example. I graded the card, and I never expect a 10 on these cards because you forget they're like over 25 years old, right? Like some are 30 years old or whatever. And this was before grading, really, So like a lot of these cards had to survive somewhat in the wild. There wasn't the thought of like, oh, open that, put it right into a penny sleeve in a card saver 1, send it. So like you don't expect a 10. But I ended up getting a 10 on the Crusade Red, and the dealer I got it from reached back out to me asking me what I got. I told him I got a 10, and then he said, oh, I know a guy who wants a 10 real bad. He's got a 9. So anyway, I got in touch with the guy. Made a trade where I got the 9 back of the same card, PSA 9. I traded him the 10. He put in some cash, and also this card right here, which is the 1998 Select Numbers Pedro Martinez. Now,
my gosh,
beautiful
bankruptcy card. Oh my gosh, look at that.
This has become my favorite modern non-vintage card. Maybe my favorite card. I can just stare at this card. It's like mesmerizing. It looks like a bank vault or like a time travel card or I don't know what, but as far as I know, there's.
Can you go full screen on that?
Yeah.
Do some justice here.
Oh my goodness!
It is. Unbelievable card.
Like a pulsar or something, right? That's really cool looking.
Yeah, it's got just numbers all around the card, and
that's like that dot matrix technology they had for the Matrix and the 97 Stadium Club.
Yeah,
like that really pops.
Unbelievable looking card. Amazed at it. I saw this was probably a year ago. There's an Instagram account called Gaudy Gum, big Pedro collector, collects a lot of Boston player cards and stuff, including Pedro. And I saw this card about a year ago pop up on his Instagram, and immediately I'm like, what is that? What the hell is that card? And turns out this 1998 Select was a set that Pinnacle, some of the best looking cards ever, and doesn't get a lot of fanfare in the overall hobby. Pinnacle was never supposed to, they went bankrupt. So this set was never supposed to be released, never was released, but some of the cards got out. And Brian, you probably know it better than me, but some of the cards got out, and these cards were supposed to be serial numbered. They were supposed to be serial numbered to like I think it's a 20 card insert set. And like, depending on the player, like Pedro, this was supposed to be numbered to 305 for his strikeouts. There's a Maddox in this set that's there's only been one ever graded by PSA, and there's been 24 ever graded of the entire 20 card set. So it like averages about one per player basically, and there's like 7 for Jeter. So I'm thinking there's probably maybe 10 at the most of each player's one of these out there. I've seen 4 Pedros now, including that one on Instagram. So anyway, I got this card back in that trade. I just out of the blue, like, was like, hey, you don't happen to have this select numbers card? And he said, yeah, actually I do. And I said, well, I'll trade you the 10 with that for the 9, this card and some cash. Made the trade, and it's unbelievable looking card. So it's funny because
card, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, just the like depending on the like the Maddox is supposed to be numbered to 176, but none of them are serial numbered at all. Like all the cards that are out there have no serial number, so it's not like it's either or. Some have it, some don't. None of them were supposed to ever be released, and none of them got the serial number. So yeah, I just love it. I figured I'd show it with you guys because you'd probably appreciate it, and
absolutely
really happy with that trade because I like that 9 just like I like the 10 of the Crusade Red, and I got this card too, so it worked out.
That's awesome.
Yep. So Matt, what do you got? Anything else you want to show us?
Just one other one. When I think of the 90s, I remember like the 93, 94 of those SP die cuts. I remember some crazy die cuts started happening in the 90s. So I did pick up one of these. It's the 97 Leaf Fractal. What do you say it?
Fractal.
It's the Fractal Matrix. Sorry, another Matrix reference, I guess, right?
Yep.
But it's like the Z-axis die cut. It's not numbered or anything, but I like all the gold. I think of gold. I think of die cut. I think of the 90s, right?
Love it.
And it's a little bit like
gold. Gold's awesome. How can you not like gold?
Exactly, right? So picked that one up just recently as well.
Brian, anything else you want to show?
Well, yeah, actually I do.
Right. Nice.
So first one of these, I really just got back into the hobby. I collected all through the 90s, basically from 1990 to 2000. Basically, I collected, and in 2000 I kind of stopped and really just got back into the hobby post-pandemic here, and so I've been having a blast going back through and picking up cards that were always sort of these cards that I had always put up on this pedestal that had been so amazing, and that I could never afford them when I was a kid because I was a kid, and I couldn't really get it. And coming back into the hobby now after 20 years, I've been saving up to try to go after some of my big Grail cards here, and just at the end of last year, I pulled the trigger on this one, and this had always been the one I was really going for the first one. So I got my 93 Finest Refractor. Oh yeah, Greg Maddox.
That's
trying to get this in the light here. I don't have the best lighting for it, but
oh man, that's like the 52 tops. Who said that? Iconic Al, your brother, said that he thinks 93 Finest is going to be like the 52 tops.
Well, I mean, it changed the hobby. I mean, this is a set that it was people know of it as the first refractor, which is already huge, right? But aside from being the first refractor, it was the first just chromium card in general. I mean, you had the base cards. Here's a Tim Salmon, but you the first time you'd ever seen a chromium card that wasn't just cardboard, but then you add the refractor on top of it, and again, this is a case where these are not serial numbered or anything, but because they were limited in how many cases were produced, and they know the quantity that were out there, they kind of and they figured the pack odds were about 1 in 15 packs for a refractor. They actually reverse engineered and figured out the print run from that of a print run of 241. So that's what it had to be based on the overall print run of the product and the pack odds. So interestingly, there's actually quite a high pop. And I mentioned before, I think if you look on the PSA pop report, they have a suspicion that some players actually had some backdoored 93 Finest refractors, particularly for, I think, Frank Thomas. I think he has over 300 graded on the PSA pop report, which again, if you have a pop of 241 out there. How does that happen? Well, a lot of those were cracks and resubmits, for sure, and that happened for every big player, especially when grading was new. I think in the late 90s, mid to late 90s and early 2000s, I think people were sending him in again and again and again to try to get the 10s. I think that's what was happening a lot of times. But yeah, so those pops particularly look a little bit strange, considering that there are other companies out there too that theoretically should have these also in their slabs. But that was a big card for me, and it's just one of the crown jewels in my collection. Really glad to have it to kick off. I'm working through refractor runs actually for every refractor set in the 90s. I'm working through. I showed a Topps Chrome base refractor run, but I'm working through Finest, and I'm working through Bowman's Best, and yeah, just working through. There's one other one I'm forgetting. Bowman Chrome. There you go. Working through those as well. So that's what I'm going for.
Love it.
Adam, there's no Pedro in there, right? Are you gonna get Ramon just at least to have some family member, or what are you gonna do?
I was gonna say that when I realized that the Pedro wasn't in that one, his first one, Finest
94.
refractor.
He's in 94. Yeah.
So I have the 94. I'll show that on a future one of these. But yeah, that was bummed out, man. I was like, oh, God, I would have loved that. That would have been awesome. But the 94 looks cool too. Not as cool as 93, but it looks nice. Cool design to it. So Matt, is that one you're going for at some point?
Yeah, it'll be on my list. I think. Yeah. I mean, I've read that there's counterfeits of those though too, right? Supposedly, or is there not? Have you guys heard anything?
Not that I've really heard of.
Okay. Not as much like the Desert Shield. I know has counterfeits out there. I know.
Oh yeah. I have one that I'm still not 100% sure whether it's real or counterfeit.
Yeah.
But it's not at a high enough grade that it would make sense grading it anyway. So I just have it raw. I'm assuming it's fake, but I don't actually know. I have to go check. Apparently, and I posted this in one of my other videos, and I got in the results in the comments. Someone was saying I got 2 people saying to give it the blacklight test. And so apparently, under a blacklight, the back of those cards are supposed to light up a little bit more than a standard Topps card. And so if they light up a little bit, that's a good sign. And if they don't, then it's counterfeit. So I had never heard that before. So I learned something about those. I tend to notice that in general, the counterfeit stamps tend to have they're a little heavy-handed with the very liberal application of that gold foil stamp. So a lot of the ones that have a better definition, for example, there's an American flag on there, and on the real ones, the stars, the individual stars on the flag are very well defined, and so you can oftentimes pick that out. But if they're not very well defined, that can be a giveaway that it's a fake one. Mine is kind of right in the middle. It's like you can see the stars, but they're not as defined as I would like them to be. But you can still see it's better. If it is a counterfeit, it's a better counterfeit than other ones I've seen. And if it's real, maybe it was just a sloppy stamp. I don't know. So, I'll have to wait till it to a black light.
But I'll be getting the Finest refractor at the National if there's one there to get. I'd like to get an 8 or a 9.
That's a great place. And then, so this is in a PSA assigned 9 is what this one is. I cover up the grades, but this is a 9. This is one of those cards where it was important to me to have it in a 9. And so not every card I feel that way about, but I just knew this was going to be such a key foundational piece, starting off such an epic run where I wanted to start off on a really strong note. And so yeah, that was
all right. Brian, what's Maddox's best card? Not 101 stuff, but what's his best card in your opinion? Come on, I'm putting you on the spot now, man.
Yeah, you are. Oh my God.
You could have a different opinion on the next episode, but for this episode, what's his best card?
Best card.
Maybe it's that one.
It might be. It's funny. I like to. I have to set some boundaries, some borders, right, with my collection because I don't want to get every one of his cards. That's not my. I don't want to be. That's just not how I want to choose the hobby. I understand people like to do that, and that's great. I want to stick to playing days. I want to stick to mostly Maddox in a Braves uniform. And boy, he got traded to the Braves just in time for this card because a lot of 93 issues still have him in a Cubs uni. And so I feel really good about that. It was just meant to be. It's like, yeah, this is how we're starting things off here. So yeah, I think this is, for me, this is up there. This is probably what my answer would be, is this card right here, 93 Finest Refractor. I understand there are some close contenders for me, and what I would say, I think 96 Select Certified Mirror Gold, I think would be another big card. I don't have any of those 96 Select mirrors. I honestly, I really just you never see them come up.
Right.
Again, I feel like they're the people who own those. Those are tucked away in collections. Those are keeper cards. I've been just ogling Bill Hall of Fame collector's collection, from afar, as he's got all of them, but and that's fun to watch, to be able to see some of these ghosts, these cards that just don't ever show up. But yeah, I think that would be another one for me. That's a biggie. There was also a PMG that was sold on eBay about 2 months ago or so, and that was a beautiful one. It has a background of the forest with these trees, and of course those circular shimmer pads.
The 98. 98.
Yeah, 98. That's the one. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Not the 99. They had the sort of lines in the back. But yeah, the 98, and that was gorgeous. And that was only listed for about a half a day, and someone just snapped it up and bought it now for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 or 5,000. I can't remember how much that was, but it was. Yeah, I'm not there, but I can admire from afar, and yeah, maybe someday the demand will come down, and I could take a crack at something like that. But
I don't think so, man. I don't
it's
think the demand's coming down.
Probably not. But that's not the ballpark I usually play in anyway. I'm more the low to mid range, is where I like to live, and so that was why I figured I like the idea of those finest. Just most of the refractor runs are pretty attainable. They're not gonna break the bank. Like you said, you can pick them up for $50, a lot of them, and that's a more comfortable place for me to be as a teacher, as a math teacher. This is something I can do to keep things reined in a bit and not let spending it out of hand, because there are some cards, these Crusade Reds and stuff, same thing. Those are going to get pretty pricey. But the purple, maybe the purple I could get,
Yep.
So,
well, I'll show one more, because I have the Nomar. I have the Nomar from that too.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
I have to say, as a math teacher, something about all those numbers around that. Oh man, that does something for me.
This is the only Nomar ever graded by PSA, and this was my holdover copy, because when I saw the Pedro one about a year ago on Instagram, and I reached out, he said, yeah, that's the only one I've ever seen. I know about it. It was a pop one. It's like 4 now I've been graded. So I was like, well, I'll probably never get that one, huh? And so I was like, well, let me see. Oh, there's a Nomar on eBay sitting there. So I got this one, and it's the only one that's ever been graded. So now I got both. I never thought I'd have a Pedro, but there's probably, who knows, there could be more of them out there, but odds, everyone says there's probably like 10 at the most of each player. So just look awesome. So love that.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, there's something about the design of those inserts in the 90s that just hit different. I don't know. Yep. There's something about that shine. It's the era of Dufex, for example, went extinct in '98 with Pinnacle, and no one's brought it back. No one's resuscitated it, and apparently it's a very lengthy process to create that kind of technology. It takes months apparently to make that kind of effect happen on a card, and so no other companies bothered to either get the engineers in there to figure out how to do it or bother to try to replicate it. That's one of the things I kind of lament about the current state of the hobby, is that when you had 5, 6, 7 legitimate companies all in there innovating, competing, it brought out the very best of each company. Was trying to outdo each other, Fleer and Donruss and Upper Deck and Tops, and they're all vying for, okay, well, Pinnacle, we want to create the best, the most innovative, and whether that means we're going to put cards in cans, or we're going to go ahead and put coins in these cards and pop them in there with Pinnacle Mint, or we're going to create crazy die cuts and new technology, and we're going to make acetate cards, and we're going to make these Fleer Skybox EX2000 cards with these windows in them with the clouds in the background, and we're going to make them pop, and we're going to number them, and we're going to make cards out of wood. And like, that's crazy. You don't see wooden cards showing up in you don't. I'm sorry. It's just
innovation era. That's what they call it.
Innovation era. It's just the cards today all feel kind of just tired. They're all just some numbered parallel and some on card auto or sticker auto, and it's like, okay, yeah, been there, done that, seen it before, ho hum.
But
You know,
by the way, guys, if anyone's wondering, the weird background I have for this is actually a close up of my Pedro 1999 Star Rubies. So
Nice.
I figured I'd make it a little.
Now that you mention it, okay, and so, but again, it's such a distinctive pattern, though, that I might have been able to guess that had you asked and said, hey, which card?
I should have made it a quiz.
Made that a quiz because if I thought about it, I definitely could have come up with that.
All right, next episode, I'm going to do a quiz. I'm going to do a different background, different pattern. You have to guess it.
Perfect.
Matt, I have one last question for you before we go, because, like I mentioned, huge Hank Aaron collector. You know, I've gotten this from people because a lot of people that discovered my channel in the past or my podcast, which this will go out on too. You know, they kind of pegged me as like, oh, he's a vintage guy. You know. And then they see me like collecting Pedro now, and I've gotten people asking like, "Are you done with vintage?" Like, I'm like, "No, man, I still love vintage. I'm a multi-era collector. I don't just like appreciate one thing. You just got to change your mindset as you go from vintage. You move over to the '90s stuff like this. It's just a different mindset, but I love them equally, and I enjoy both. I do both at the same time. Sometimes I'm a little heavier in either one, but how do you look at it? Because I know you love both too.
Yeah, my save searches didn't go away. I'm still looking for what I still need for Aaron and Spawn, right? The issue I'm up against, I have less than 200 cards left to get for combined for both, right? So I'm kind of at that point where I may find a card every few weeks or a month or may go longer, right? So this keeps me engaged in the hobby. And I really, like when I was looking at Spawn and kind of looking at his stats, the next person that was in line with almost everything he had in terms of wins or the tenure of his career, the quality starts, the number of seasons like with 30 plus starts in a row, like 30 plus starts a year. It was Maddox every time was like number 2 behind Spawn, right? So I was like, this makes perfect sense. The funny part is though, and I know Joe makes fun of me for this, Sports Off Quarters, like I'm a Phillies fan collecting now 3 Brave players, primarily Braves players, right? Which is, I got some issues with it, but no, it's okay.
I was gonna say, growing up in Pittsburgh, you know, we weren't supposed to like the Braves. You know, we had some bad experiences in the early '90s with, you know, Sid Bream, and we don't want to talk about that anymore. But yeah, that was kind of a taboo. You know, it was, you know, the tomahawk chop was the nightmare-inducing, you know, for any Pirates fan at that time. But you know, hey, Maddox, you know, Maddox is Maddox. I gravitate towards Maddox because, you know, he was the kind of a guy that was so successful with what he did, and he did it without like a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He didn't blow anybody away, but he did it with precision, with control, with movement, with studying the batters, figuring out where they didn't like him, throwing them there, locating them there, and I just have a lot of respect for his approach to how he went about playing the game. And the fact that he didn't throw, you know, 100 miles an hour, he could go deep into games. He had the complete games. He could, you know, and the fact that he wasn't really a strikeout pitcher either. He you know, relied on weak contact, which gave him opportunities to field the ball, and of course ended up with 18 Gold Gloves, the most of any player ever for any position ever. So I have just tremendous amount of respect for that. And despite that, still finished with over 3,000 strikeouts, and was the only guy to finish with over 3,000 strikeouts and fewer than 1,000 walks. In fact, he finished with 999.
Wow.
So numbers. Brian likes numbers. We know that now.
I like numbers. I like your select numbers cards, by the way. Beautiful.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's cap it there, and we'll save the rest for the next one. Hopefully, we can do a lot more of these. Guys, thanks for watching. In the comments, post what you want us to talk about on the next episode. Maybe if there's any cards you want to have us talk about. Mostly Brian to educate you on. We're just kind of here for the ride to learn ourselves. So post anything you want in the comments, questions, stuff you'd like to talk about, or even if you'd like to join us on a future one, maybe we'll do this live one of these times and we could have people pop on with us, make it a little more interactive, but we'll see where it goes.
Sounds good.
That's it, guys. See ya.